The first rays of morning sun peeked through the thin curtains as Mia Henderson's alarm blared to life. With a groan, she reached over and silenced it, allowing herself just one more minute of rest before the long day ahead. Her small studio apartment was barely 400 square feet, but it was hers and in New York City. That counted for something. Mia's eyes drifted to the upright piano against the wall, a Yamaha that had seen better days, its wood finish scratched in places, one pedal slightly squeaky. It had been her grandmother's, transported at considerable expense from Ohio when Mia had still believed in her dreams. "Not today," she whispered, forcing herself out of bed. There wasn't time to play this morning. Her shift at Bellini's started at 10 a.m. and would run until after midnight due to a private event. Another 16-hour day on her feet, smiling until her cheeks hurt. In the shower, Mia hummed softly, her fingers unconsciously tapping rhythms against the tile wall. Music was like breathing to her. Even when she tried to suppress it, it found ways to escape. She'd been playing since age 4, when her mother noticed how she would hum perfectly in tune with the radio. Piano lessons had followed, then theory classes, youth orchestras, competitions. By 17, she had performed with 3 different symphonies as a featured young artist. Then life happened. Her mother's diagnosis came during Mia's second year at the conservatory. Multiple sclerosis, aggressive and debilitating. The medical bills piled up faster than the scholarship money came in. Mia's choice hadn't really felt like a choice at all. She withdrew, moved home, got a job. When her mother finally stabilized with proper care, Mia promised herself she'd go back. That was 4 years ago. Dressed in the required uniform, crisp white shirt, black slacks, black non-slip shoes, hair tied back, Mia looked nothing like the concert pianist she had once planned to become. She applied minimal makeup, just enough to look professional and approachable, as the employee handbook suggested. The only hint of her other life was the delicate treble clef necklace tucked beneath her collar, another gift from her grandmother. The subway ride to Bellini's took 35 minutes on a good day. Today wasn't a good day. Signal problems at Union Square meant Mia arrived with just 7 minutes to spare. Rushing through the employee entrance and stashing her bag in the tiny locker assigned to her, cutting it close. "Henderson," remarked Dev the bartender, as he polished glasses for the lunch service. "Blame the MTA," Mia replied, quickly tying her apron. "Anything I should know about today?" Dev rolled his eyes dramatically. "The charity gala tonight is for some art foundation. All the rich folks pretending to care about bringing music to underprivileged kids while they sip $100 champagne." Mia felt a small twinge. Music education was actually something she cared deeply about. Before leaving Ohio, she'd volunteered teaching piano to kids who couldn't afford lessons. "I'm sure some of them actually care," she said, checking her tables for proper setup. "Sure. And I'm secretly a Rockefeller," Dev laughed. "Oh, and Blake is in a mood because Philippe called in sick." Mia groaned inwardly. Philippe was the restaurant's regular pianist, a middle-aged Frenchman who played just well enough to provide pleasant background music without drawing attention away from the diner's conversations. Exactly what Blake, the manager, wanted. The lunch shift passed in a blur of orders, smiles and careful attention to details. Bellini's catered to the type of customer who could tell if their water was tap or spring, who might complain if their medium-rare steak was even slightly off temperature. They were lawyers, finance executives, fashion industry people, and old money types who treated lunch as a 2-hour affair rather than a quick bite. Mia had learned to make herself nearly invisible, appearing only when needed, refilling water glasses before they emptied, clearing plates at precisely the right moment. She had also learned to ignore the occasional condescending tone, or the customers who never looked her in the eye. The tips were good, and that was what mattered. Between lunch and dinner came the staff meal, eaten quickly in the back room while standing or perched on milk crates. Mia picked at a plate of pasta, half listening to the chatter around her. Her mind wandered to the piece she'd been working on last night. Liszt's La Campanella, a technically demanding piece that required the kind of finger dexterity that waiting tables actually helped maintain. "Earth, to Mia," said Zoe, another server, waving a hand in front of her face. "Blake's looking for you." Blake Reynolds stood in his office doorway, phone pressed to his ear, face flushed with what looked like barely contained panic. He gestured Mia in urgently. No, I understand that, but this is an emergency. We need someone tonight, anyone. He listened for a moment. Fine. Call me if anything changes. He hung up and ran a hand through his thinning hair. Problem? Mia asked. Philippe has the flu. The agency has no one available on short notice. Tonight's event has 150 guests, including the chairman of the New York Philharmonic, and at least 2 major music critics. He looked at his watch. And we have less than 5 hours to find a pianist. Mia's heart skipped a beat. She opened her mouth, then closed it. This was crazy. She couldn't possibly offer to... I play, she heard herself say, the words escaping before she could reconsider. Blake looked up, confusion crossing his face. You what? Piano, I play piano. Mia's palms felt suddenly sweaty. I studied at Eastman before I had to leave for family reasons. Blake's expression was skeptical. Waiting tables and playing background music for Manhattan's elite are very different skills, Mia. I know that, she said, a flash of pride cutting through her nervousness. I was on track for a performance degree. I've soloed with orchestras. Blake still looked doubtful. Look, these people know music. They'll notice if... Just let me audition, Mia interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. 5 minutes. If I'm not good enough, you can keep calling agencies. Blake checked his watch again and sighed. Fine. 5 minutes. The main dining room was empty, chairs still stacked on tables after the floor had been mopped. The grand piano, a Steinway that Philippe treated with casual indifference, sat on the small raised platform in the corner. Mia approached it with the reverence of someone entering a church. She sat on the bench, adjusted its height, and placed her hands on the keys. They were cool and smooth beneath her fingertips, so much more responsive than her old upright at home. She closed her eyes for a moment, deciding what to play. Something that would show technical ability but also emotion, something that couldn't be faked. She began with Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The opening notes hung in the air, deceptively simple, before she launched into the main section. Her body remembered everything her mind had tried to set aside. The proper posture, the wrist position, the way to use weight rather than just finger strength for the powerful passages. The music filled the empty restaurant, bouncing off the high ceilings and wood paneling. Mia lost herself in it, forgetting Blake, forgetting the coming shift, forgetting the years of serving rather than performing. Her fingers flew through the difficult runs, her left hand providing the foundation, while her right told the story. When she reached the thunderous coda, she held nothing back, letting years of suppressed passion flow through her into the instrument. As the final notes faded, Mia became aware of silence, then the sound of slow clapping. She opened her eyes to see not just Blake standing there, but also Chef Antonio and 3 kitchen staff who had emerged to listen, along with Zoe and 2 busboys. Holy shit, said Dev from the bar area. Henderson's been holding out on us. Blake's expression had transformed completely. Gone was the skepticism, replaced by something like awe mixed with calculation. Can you handle 4 hours tonight? He asked. Mostly background stuff during dinner, then maybe something more substantial during the donation part of the evening. Mia nodded, heart racing. I'd need to change, though. I can't play in this. She gestured at her server's uniform. Zoe, doesn't your sister work at Nordstrom? Call her. See if she can bring over a few options. Blake was already in planning mode. We'll credit your serving shift to Lucy. She needs the hours anyway. You'll get the standard musician's fee plus a percentage of tonight's gratuity pool. As the staff dispersed to prepare for dinner service, Mia remained at the piano, lightly touching the keys without pressing them down. Part of her couldn't believe what had just happened. Part of her felt like she'd finally woken up after a long sleep. She thought of her mother, who had insisted through years of illness that Mia shouldn't give up her music, that sacrificing her own dreams wasn't necessary. The right moment will come, she'd said. You just have to be ready for it. Tonight, Mia would play background music for people who might not even listen, but she would be playing. It was more than she'd done in years. And who knew? In a room full of music people, anything could happen. With a deep breath, she stood up from the bench. She had preparations to make, pieces to choose, a performance to give. For the first time in years, Mia felt that peculiar mixture of terror and excitement that came before stepping onto a stage. She had 5 hours to remember who she used to be, who she still was underneath the server's uniform and the practiced smile. The pianist was returning, ready or not. Zoe returned to the restaurant an hour later, garment bag in hand, her face flushed from rushing. She found Mia in the break room, scribbling notes on staff paper she'd borrowed from the office. "Got you covered," Zoe announced, unzipping the bag to reveal 3 dresses. "My sister says you can return whatever you don't wear tomorrow." Mia looked up from her planning, momentarily overwhelmed by her friend's kindness. "Zoe, I can't thank you enough. Please. After 4 years of listening to you hum classical music while rolling silverware, I finally get to see what all the fuss is about." Zoe held up a simple black dress with cap sleeves. "This one's my vote. Classic, not too flashy. You want them noticing you're playing, not your outfit." Mia fingered the fabric, a soft, high-quality crepe that probably cost more than a week's worth of tips. "It's perfect." The women's restroom became an impromptu dressing room. Mia changed quickly, grateful that the dress fit well enough if a little loose around the waist. Zoe appeared with a small cosmetics bag. "I'm upgrading you from approachable server to mysterious pianist," she declared, applying a deeper shade of lipstick to Mia's mouth and adding more definition to her eyes. Mia barely recognized herself in the mirror. With her hair swept into a simple updo and the elegant dress, she looked like she belonged on the other side of the service equation, a guest rather than staff. "Now you look the part," Zoe said, satisfaction in her voice. "Just remember us little people when you're famous." Mia laughed, but it came out nervous and thin. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I just need to not embarrass myself tonight." While they'd been transforming Mia's appearance, the restaurant had transformed as well. The regular dining tables had been rearranged to create a more open space. White lilies and roses adorned each table alongside gleaming silverware and crystal. Staff in tuxedos, rental units from a company Blake used for special events, moved with practiced efficiency, setting out water glasses and wine pairings. Blake intercepted Mia as she emerged from the back. "You clean up nice," he said, appraising her new look with approval. "I've put together a list of suggested pieces based on what Philippe usually plays." He handed her a sheet of paper. "Mostly light classical, some jazz standards. Nothing too demanding or attention-grabbing." Mia scanned the list and managed not to wince. It was all pleasant enough, but painfully safe. The musical equivalent of beige paint. Debussy's Clair de Lune, a couple of simplified Mozart pieces, some watered-down Gershwin. "I can do these," she said carefully. "But I've also prepared a few alternatives that might work better for different parts of the evening." Blake looked skeptical. "This isn't a concert, Henderson. It's background music. These people want to talk business and write checks, not sit in silence listening to you show off." The comment stung, but Mia kept her expression neutral. "I understand. I'll stick to appropriate background pieces." "Good. You start in 20 minutes. Guests are already arriving for cocktails in the bar area." Blake checked his watch, a nervous habit she'd noticed over the years. "Just don't overdo it, okay?" As Blake hurried off to oversee final preparations, Chef Antonio emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He was a burly man with a perpetual scowl that belied his actually kind nature. "Ah, the secret musician," he said, his Italian accent thickening as it always did when he was emotional. "My mother was a piano teacher in Naples. 42 years she taught children to play. I grew up with the sound of scales morning to night." Mia smiled, touched by this personal revelation from a man who rarely spoke about anything but food. "I didn't know that. Life takes us on strange journeys, no?" He gestured toward the piano. "Tonight you play what is in your heart, not just what is on the paper. These rich people, they eat good food every day, but to hear music played with soul? That is more rare." He patted her shoulder and returned to the kitchen, leaving Mia with a curious sense of calm. Taking a deep breath, she made her way to the grand piano. The instrument had been polished to a high shine for the occasion, its glossy black surface reflecting the flickering candlelight. Mia adjusted the bench, settled her dress, and placed her fingers on the keys. The restaurant hummed with pre-event energy, servers arranging last-minute details, the sommelier checking wine temperatures, guests beginning to filter in from the bar area. Mia began with something safe from Blake's list, a Chopin nocturne, gentle and familiar. As she played, she observed the room filling. Women in designer dresses and statement jewelry, men in tailored suits with watches that cost more than her yearly rent. These were people she usually saw from a different angle, looking up as she set down plates. backing away with a polite nod after refilling water glasses. From her new vantage point at the piano, Mia noticed different things. How some guests genuinely greeted the servers they recognized while others looked through them as if they were furniture. How some couples seemed to actually enjoy each other's company, while others maintained a careful public performance of affection. How some people's eyes occasionally drifted to the piano with genuine appreciation, while most treated the music as just another ambient element, like the lighting or temperature. One elderly woman in particular caught Mia's attention. Seated at a table near the piano, she wore a simple strand of pearls that stood out for its understatement amid the flashing diamonds around the room. Several times Mia noticed her pausing in conversation to listen more intently, a slight smile playing on her lined face. As the cocktail hour transitioned to dinner, Mia adjusted her playing to match the shift in energy. She moved to lighter jazz standards that would blend with the increasing volume of dinner conversation. Her fingers found the keys automatically, muscle memory taking over as her mind continued to observe the room. She recognized several regular customers, including the hedge fund manager who always ordered the same medium-rare steak and never left more than a 15% tip, despite his custom suits and Rolex watches. There was also the publishing executive who spoke kindly to servers but whose eyes never quite met theirs. Tonight she was animated, gesturing emphatically to a bored-looking man beside her. Blake occasionally caught Mia's eye from across the room, giving approving nods when she kept the music appropriately subdued. Once, when she added a few too many flourishes to Autumn Leaves, his eyebrows drew together in warning. During the main course, Mia spotted a familiar face that made her stomach tighten. Professor Gregory Chen from the Manhattan Conservatory, one of the judges from the last competition she'd performed in before leaving school. He'd written glowing comments about her interpretation of Rachmaninoff, suggesting she had a promising future. Did he recognize her now? The thought made her fingers stumble briefly over a passage in Misty. As dessert was served, Blake approached the piano during a brief break between pieces. "You're doing fine," he said, which from Blake was high praise. The director of the foundation wants to make a few remarks before the donation pledges. After that, they've requested something a bit more substantial. He handed her another note. "This is what they asked for. Can you handle it?" Mia looked at the paper. Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, first movement. Her heart seemed to stop, then race. It was her mother's favorite piece, the music they'd listened to together during long hospital nights, the piece that had made her mother cry with its beauty, even during her worst pain. It was also fiendishly difficult, especially without an orchestra behind her. "Yes," she said simply. "I can play it." Blake looked relieved. "Good, you'll have about 15 minutes. The foundation director will introduce you formally, so just wait for his cue." He hesitated, then added, "This could be good exposure for you, Henderson. There are some important music people here tonight." As Blake walked away, Mia felt a wave of emotions crash over her. Fear, excitement, gratitude, and something else she hadn't felt in years, possibility. The foundation director, a tall man with silver hair and a resonant voice, tapped a knife against his glass to quiet the room. Conversations gradually faded as he welcomed everyone and thanked them for their support of music education initiatives across the city. Mia half listened, using the time to center herself to remember what her old teacher had always said before performances. The music already exists perfectly in another realm. Your job is just to bring it into this one as purely as you can. And now, the director's voice cut through her thoughts. We are privileged to hear a special performance. The first movement of Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, performed by Bellini's own pianist, Mia Henderson. Applause rippled through the room, polite but distracted. Most guests were already reaching for their checkbooks or looking at their phones. Few eyes turned expectantly toward the piano. Mia placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began. The famous opening chords rang out, dark, resonant, commanding attention. She played them exactly as Rachmaninoff had intended, like the tolling of deep bells, each one building on the last to create a foundation for what was to come. And then she was swept away in the current of the music, her body remembering what her mind had tried to forget, how it felt to truly perform, to surrender to something greater than herself. As the Schubert piece built to its brilliant conclusion, Mia felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a very long time. Hope. The following morning, Mia woke to sunlight streaming through her thin curtains and the unfamiliar sensation of possibility humming in her chest. For a moment, she wondered if she had dreamed the entire previous night. The performance, the applause, the business cards now sitting on her nightstand. But the black dress hanging on her closet door confirmed it had all been real. She reached for her phone and found it blinking with notifications, text messages from coworkers who had heard about her performance, a voicemail from her mother, and an email from an address she didn't recognize. She opened the email first. Ms. Henderson, it read, I was at Bellini's last night and was deeply moved by your performance. I'm a producer at WNYC and would love to discuss the possibility of featuring you on our Emerging Artists radio segment. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Mia sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. She reread the email twice to make sure she hadn't misunderstood. Then she listened to her mother's voicemail. Mia, honey, Zoe called me last night and told me everything. I'm so proud I could burst. Call me as soon as you can. Love you. The excitement in her mother's voice made Mia's eyes well up. 4 years ago, when she'd left music school to help her family, her mother had been devastated, not for herself, but for Mia. It's just a pause, not an end, her mother had insisted, even as Mia had packed away her sheet music and competition medals. Over time, they had both stopped mentioning the future Mia had abandoned, pretending the restaurant job was what she had wanted all along. She was about to call her mother back when her phone rang, Blake from the restaurant. Henderson, he said without preamble, I need you to come in early today. Mia's heart sank. After last night's high, returning to serving tables felt like crashing back to earth. I'm not scheduled until 4. I know, but something's come up. Can you be here by noon? She sighed. I'll be there. After a quick shower, Mia dressed in jeans and a simple blouse. She'd change into her uniform at work and headed to the subway. The ride gave her time to think. Last night had awakened something she'd tried to bury, and she wasn't sure she could push it back down again. The thought of returning to her regular life, taking orders, carrying plates, being invisible, made her chest tighten. But what were her alternatives? Victoria Lynn's business card seemed to burn in her pocket, but one audition didn't pay the bills. When she arrived at Bellini's, she was surprised to find the restaurant buzzing with activity. Despite being hours from opening, Blake waved her over to his office where he was engaged in an animated phone conversation. She just walked in. I'll ask her. He covered the mouthpiece. The host of Classical Encounters wants to know if you'd be willing to be interviewed for next Sunday's show. They're doing a segment on unexpected musical discoveries. Mia blinked, caught off guard. That's a national radio program. I'm aware, Blake said dryly. Yes or no? They're on deadline. Yes, Mia replied, the word escaping before she could overthink it. Blake relayed her answer and finished the call. Sit down, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. We need to talk. Mia perched on the edge of the seat, suddenly nervous. Am I in trouble for last night? I know I went off script with the Rachmaninoff, but the foundation director requested it and... You're not in trouble, Blake interrupted. Quite the opposite. The owner called this morning. The foundation event raised more money than any previous year. They're crediting your performance. That's good, right? Very good. So good that he wants to offer you a new position. We'll keep Filippi for regular nights, but for special events, higher profile clients, that would be you. Proper musician salary, benefits, the works. Mia sat back, stunned. You want me to quit being a server and become the special events pianist? That's the offer. Take it or leave it. Blake's expression softened slightly. Look, Henderson, I've been in this business 20 years. I know talent when I see it. What you did last night wasn't just playing piano. It was something else. He seemed embarrassed by this moment of sincerity and quickly reverted to his usual brisk tone. So what do you say? Mia took a deep breath. Can I have a day to think about it? Blake nodded. 24 hours. Now there's someone waiting to talk to you in the dining room. Confused, Mia made her way to the main restaurant area. Sitting at a table near the piano was Elizabeth Harmon, the elderly woman from the night before. She rose as Mia approached. Ms. Henderson, thank you for meeting me. I hope I'm not interrupting your day. Not at all, Mia replied, still trying to process everything that was happening. Can I get you something to drink? Water, coffee? Elizabeth smiled. I'm fine, thank you. Please sit down. Mia took a seat, feeling strange to be sitting at one of the tables rather than serving it. How did you know I'd be here? I called earlier and spoke with your manager. I hope you don't mind. Elizabeth folded her hands on the table. I wanted to speak with you privately about your future. My future? In music. After what I heard last night, it would be a tragedy for you not to pursue it professionally. Elizabeth's gaze was kind but direct. Tell me, what's holding you back? The question was so straightforward that Mia found herself answering honestly. Money. My mother's medical bills, rent, the usual. Elizabeth nodded. I suspected as much. That's why I'm here. She reached into her handbag and withdrew an envelope. The Harrison Foundation, that's my late husband's foundation, offers scholarships to exceptional musicians facing financial barriers. We typically work through schools, but occasionally we make exceptions for special cases. She slid the envelope across the table. This is an offer for a 1-year fellowship. It includes a monthly stipend for living expenses, medical coverage that can extend to dependents, and funding for private instruction with the teacher of your choice. Mia stared at the envelope, unable to speak. All we ask in return is that you commit fully to your music for that year, Elizabeth continued. No restaurant jobs, no distractions, just practice, study, and performance. At the end of the year, we'll evaluate next steps together, whether that's formal schooling, competition preparation, or another path. Why? Mia finally managed. Why would you do this for a stranger? Elizabeth's eyes crinkled at the corners. Because 57 years ago I was a promising young cellist working as a secretary to pay the bills. Someone did something similar for me. She paused. And because when you played Rachmaninoff last night I saw my husband cry. He's been gone 15 years now, but I could see him so clearly, sitting beside me, moved to tears as he always was by that piece. Mia felt her own eyes fill. I don't know what to say. You don't have to decide right now, Elizabeth assured her. Take the envelope. Read the details. Call me with your questions. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Just don't wait too long. Talent like yours shouldn't be serving drinks, it should be serving the world. After Elizabeth left, Mia remained at the table, the envelope in her hands. Through the large windows, she could see people walking past. Business people hurrying to meetings, tourists consulting maps, couples strolling hand in hand. For 4 years, she had watched the same parade of humanity while carrying trays and taking orders, always on the outside looking in. Her phone buzzed with a text from Victoria Lynn. Have you considered my offer? I have a slot open for auditions next Wednesday. Before she could respond, another message came through, this one from her mother. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Always have been. Mia slipped the envelope into her bag and walked to the piano. It sat silent now, the lid closed, waiting for the evening's entertainment. She ran her fingers along its smooth edge, remembering how it had felt last night to make this instrument sing, to connect with an audience, to be truly seen for perhaps the first time since leaving music school. Blake appeared from his office. So what do you think about the job offer? Mia took a deep breath. I'm grateful, truly, but I don't think I can accept it. Blake's eyebrows shot up. Why not? It's good money, prestigious clients. Because I think I need to be all in, Mia said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Not just playing special events, but really seeing where this could go. The woman who was just here, she's offered me a fellowship. A year to focus entirely on music. And you're going to take it? Mia nodded slowly. I think I am. Blake sighed, but there was no real disappointment in it. Can't say I'm surprised. You don't belong here, Henderson. Never did. He held out his hand. Good luck. Though I don't think you'll need it. As they shook hands, the door to the restaurant opened and Zoe burst in, still wearing her coat. Mia, have you seen it? You're all over social media. She thrust her phone toward Mia. Someone filmed your performance last night and posted it. It's got thousands of views already. Mia took the phone and watched a slightly shaky video of herself playing Rachmaninoff, lost in the music, unaware she was being recorded. The comments below were filled with astonishment and praise. Who is she? Where can I hear more? Why isn't she famous yet? A strange laugh bubbled up from Mia's chest, part joy, part disbelief. 24 hours ago, she had been just another server in an upscale restaurant, practically invisible to the very people who were now asking about her online. What are you going to do? Zoe asked. excitement dancing in her eyes. Mia handed the phone back, a smile spreading across her face. "I'm going to play the piano." 1 year later, Mia sat in a small dressing room backstage at Carnegie Hall, trying to calm her racing heart. The mirror reflected back a version of herself she was still getting used to, hair styled in elegant waves, makeup subtle but stage-appropriate, a midnight blue gown that actually belonged to her now, not borrowed or rented for the occasion. A light knock sounded at the door. "5 minutes, Miss Henderson," called a stagehand. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment to marvel at the journey of the past 12 months. The Harrison Foundation Fellowship had changed everything, providing not just financial support but connections that had opened doors Mia had thought permanently closed to her. Weekly lessons with Victoria Lynn had rebuilt her technique and expanded her repertoire. A carefully curated series of small recitals had reintroduced her to performing regularly. The radio interviews had brought attention from critics and music lovers alike, and all of it had led here, to tonight's Young Artists of Promise showcase at one of the world's most prestigious concert halls. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Zoe. "Break a leg, superstar. We're all in the audience ready to embarrass you with excessive cheering." Attached was a selfie of Zoe with Dev, Chef Antonio, and several other staff members from Bellini's, all dressed up and grinning widely. Mia smiled, a lump forming in her throat. They had been her first real audience in years, and they'd never stopped supporting her even after she'd left the restaurant. Another text appeared, this one from her mother. "So proud of you, sweetheart. Dad would have been too." That one brought tears to her eyes. Her father had been her first piano teacher, patiently guiding her small hands over the keys until his death when she was 12. In many ways, she had pursued music to honor his memory, and walking away from it had felt like losing him a second time. The thought that he would have understood her journey, both the detour and the return, meant everything. A final message came through from Elizabeth Harmon. "You've done the work. Now enjoy the moment." Mia took a deep breath. Elizabeth had been right about many things over the past year, but perhaps most importantly about the value of the journey itself. The monthly stipend had freed Mia to focus entirely on music, but it was the daily discipline of practice, the vulnerabilities exposed in lessons, the gradual rebuilding of confidence through small performances that had truly transformed her playing. 2 minutes, called the stagehand. Mia stood, smoothed her gown, and headed for the stage door. As she waited in the wings, she could hear the polite applause as the previous performer, a brilliant young cellist, took his final bow. The host returned to the microphone to introduce her. "Our next artist comes to us with an unusual story. Just over a year ago, Mia Henderson was waiting tables at an upscale Manhattan restaurant when fate gave her an unexpected opportunity." Mia smiled to herself. The story had become something of a calling card. The waitress pianist, the diamond in the rough discovered by accident. Music publications loved the narrative, even as Mia herself had come to see it differently. There had been no accident, no stroke of luck. There had only been persistence, the quiet determination to keep music in her life even when the path forward wasn't clear. Please welcome Mia Henderson. Taking another steadying breath, Mia walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience a blur of shadows beyond the first few rows. She could make out her mother in her wheelchair in the accessible seating area, Elizabeth beside her. She spotted Zoe and the Bellini's crew in the center section, Professor Chen near the front, and was that Philippe, the regular pianist whose illness had started this whole journey? She smiled in his direction, grateful rather than resentful. Mia took her seat at the gleaming Steinway, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands in her lap. This was the moment she had both longed for and feared during the past year, a real stage, a discerning audience, high expectations. The piece she had chosen was Beethoven's Appassionata Sonata, a work of tremendous emotional range that had become deeply personal to her over months of study. She placed her hands on the keys and began. The opening notes were delicate, questioning, like the first tentative steps on a new path. Mia felt the familiar sensation of disappearing into the music, but there was something different now. Where once she had used music as an escape, now it was a connection to the audience, to herself, to the complex truth of her journey. As the piece progressed, Building in intensity and technical demands, Mia remained anchored in the moment. Her fingers found the keys with precision born of thousands of hours of practice. The dramatic middle section surged with the frustration and determination of her years away from music. The final movement raced with the exhilaration of return, of rediscovery. When the last powerful chord faded, Mia remained still for a moment, hands hovering above the keys. Then she lowered them to her lap and raised her head. The applause that greeted her was immediate and enthusiastic. As she stood to take her bow, she saw several people rise to their feet. Her mother was crying openly, clapping with fierce pride. Zoe was practically jumping up and down. Even the critics in their reserved seats were nodding with approval. Backstage after her performance, Mia found her dressing room filled with flowers, roses from Elizabeth, wildflowers from her mother, a humorous arrangement of vegetables from the kitchen staff at Bellini's with a note reading, "From your first audience." As she gathered her things to join her family and friends for the reception, there was a knock at the door. A woman in a tailored suit entered, introducing herself as Diane Wells from Harbor Classical Records. "That was quite a performance, Ms. Henderson," she said, handing Mia her card. "We've been following your progress over the past year. We'd like to discuss the possibility of recording an album with you. Perhaps a program of Rachmaninoff and Beethoven?" Mia thanked her, promising to be in touch soon. As Diane left, Victoria Lynn appeared in the doorway. "Well done," she said simply. "The fellowship committee meets next week. I think it's safe to say you'll be offered a renewal, with some additional performance opportunities attached this time." "Thank you," Mia replied. "For everything," Victoria smiled. "You did the work. I just provided direction." She hesitated, then added, "You know, when we first met at Bellini's, I thought I was seeing raw talent that needed refining. But I've come to realize that those years away from music weren't wasted. There's a depth to your playing that comes from somewhere beyond technique." After Victoria left, Mia sat for a moment in the quiet dressing room. Through the walls, she could hear the muffled sounds of the ongoing concert, another young artist taking their turn on stage. She thought about the many paths that had led her to this moment. Some chosen, some forced upon her by circumstance, all part of the same journey. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had posted a video of tonight's performance, and it was already collecting views and comments. One in particular caught her eye. "I was at Bellini's the night she first performed. Amazing to see how far she's come." Mia smiled and put away her phone. It was time to join the people who had supported her through every stage of this journey. Her mother, who had insisted she keep playing even through illness. Elizabeth, who had provided the opportunity to return. Victoria, who had pushed her to new heights. Zoe and the restaurant crew, who had cheered her on from the beginning. As she made her way through the backstage area to the reception hall, a young stagehand stopped her. "Excuse me, Ms. Henderson. I just wanted to say, I'm working here nights while trying to finish my degree in violin performance. Your story gives me hope." Mia reached out and squeezed the young woman's hand. "Keep playing," she said, "even when it seems impossible. Especially then." In the reception hall, Mia was immediately surrounded by well-wishers, critics, fellow musicians, and record executives. But she made her way straight to where her mother waited, bending down to embrace her. "So," her mother asked, eyes shining, "how does it feel?" Mia considered the question. The past year had been challenging in ways she hadn't anticipated. The fellowship had covered her living expenses, but not erased the habits of frugality developed during leaner times. The return to serious music study had been physically and emotionally demanding. There were still medical bills to manage, practical considerations for the future. But there was also this, the pure joy of living one's purpose, of finding the path back to oneself. "It feels like coming home," Mia said simply, "like I finally remembered who I am." Her mother nodded, understanding completely. "Your father always said music wasn't something you did. It was something you were." As the evening continued, Mia moved between conversations with colleagues, mentors, and friends, old and new. Plans were discussed for recordings, concerts, further study. The future stretched before her, full of possibilities. But in a quiet moment, she found herself standing beside the exhibition hall piano. Without thinking, she sat down and played a few notes of the Rachmaninoff concerto that had changed everything that night at Bellini's. Elizabeth appeared at her side. "Full circle," she observed. Mia nodded, fingers still resting lightly on the key.